Exiles, if you're seeing this, I'm gone. On a cruise in the Bahamas, and I was smart enough to record a Path of Exile 2 review comprehensive of all of Return of the Ancients, because before I flew off to this ocean paradise, I have completed every questline in the game, I have maxed out a character in solo self-found, and I've experienced almost all of what Return of the Ancients has to offer. So I'd like to break it down by every aspect in this video, giving you the good, the bad, and the ugly of the greatest Path of Exile 2 patch so far that is setting up this game to march into 1.0 in the best state it has ever been in, as long as you're okay with its current vision and direction, because as we had these arguments several months ago, it really is not what I expected it to be. But man, I would be lying if I was saying I wasn't having an absolute blast playing. So it's time to sprint through this without tripping over and give my take on the stickiest PoE2 update ever, one that I'd argue has probably ruined the lives of tens of thousands of exiles out there. Hey everyone, Talkative Try here. If you don't know me, I like to make dumb videos on Path of Exile 2 commentary and news, and maybe some lore in between as well. If you like the content, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below while watching the video all the way through. It's the best thing you can do to help the channel grow. Thank you so much for your support. Let's begin. Let's kick this off with some very fast stats. I am sitting at 2 days, 8 hours, 49 minutes, and 16 seconds played on my martial artist. This is the breakdown of my character sheet right now. Remember, I am on solo self-found. I'm doing everything myself, and I'm not following any particular build. These are the damage tool tips on each of my skills. Laugh at them all you want. They are mine. Here I am on the challenges themselves. I'm close to closing them out right now. Here is my atlas. You can see, even though I've completed all the quest lines, which I'm about to talk about very soon, I have not come close to filling out all the points despite my tremendous amount of playtime. You really need to play a lot to max this out, or play efficiently, and I don't do that. And then finally, a quick hover over all of my gear, because I know you will want to see it right here and now. Some of these pieces I've upgraded many times, and some of them I've had since about the start of Endgame, including the Fists of Stone gloves that I am currently wearing right here. Oh, and look at that complete curse immunity that I have because of the martial artist. How busted is that? With all that stated, let's go on to the brutally honest review of Path of Exile 2 Return of the Ancients. We are not going to go chronologically here. We're going to start with the biggest mover and shaker of 0.5, and that is the endgame. The endgame was completely revamped in this patch, and I think it is in the best state it ever has been by far, and I'd go as far to say that I enjoy this type of endgame more than Path of Exile 1s or Diablo 4s, or definitely last Epochs or any other ARPG I have ever played. The campaign 2.0 pitch was an actual hit, and someone like myself loves seeing the guideposts leading me from one boss to the next, from one story to the next, from one reward system to the next, while having all these other mechanics interspersed throughout. They give a sense of mystery to new players. What happens if I interact with this mechanic? Yes, I'm going toward Breach, but if I start really farming up rituals, what am I going to get? And I think that works on veteran and new players alike. When you end every single play session wanting more, wanting to play one more map, and then you end up doing so after you close out of Path of Exile 2, you know it's in an excellent spot. So I did complete all the quest lines this particular league, but I could see forgoing them in the future, especially if I end up playing Trade League instead of SSF. One of the big reasons that I went through all the quest lines is because very specific items and reward systems, such as the Genesis tree of Breach, are locked behind these quest lines, and you want, I'd say you need to complete them to up your character's power. I thoroughly enjoyed every quest. The narrative department knocked it out of the park. The UI is left to be wanting a little bit, but I'm sure they'll improve that in the future. I think the fortress is great. However, that's where I actually have most of my feedback for the overall end game. This is something that you want to do ASAP, and I don't think a lot of players understand that. You get to the fortress, you start doing it, you do the citadels, you do the Arbiter of Ash, Arbiter of Divinity, and you get all these Atlas passives, and it unlocks so much more gameplay, so much more customization for you. And I could see many new players not really understanding this. I actually saw this with some of my friends who aren't even new players. They just didn't understand how important it was. And instead of doing the fortress, they beelined for Breach. One of them beelined toward Ritual. Another went to Delirium and got their butt absolutely kicked and had no idea what was going on. I think that grinding your games should emphasize how important going to the fortress is and clearing at least the first layer of it to get all, not all, but many of your Atlas passive points truly is. And in conjunction with that, I do think the travel time between nodes or between goals in the fortress specifically might still be a little bit too much. And that is shocking to hear because I believe they said they reduced it by 50% before it hit the live servers. I think that reduction needs to happen more and more. Or instead of that, you could allow players to earn Atlas passive points outside of the fortress, for example, when they complete maps that have the little ancient modifiers on top of them, instead of only allowing players to get Atlas points from doing the fortress. The fortress almost seems like its own league mechanic. Just like with Breach, you can only earn Breach points on your Atlas tree by doing specific Breach maps in the Breach Hive biome. Well, with the regular Atlas, you can only get regular Atlas points if you do stuff within the fortress. Why don't you widen the area where you can get these Atlas passive points and allow people to get points while progressing to other league mechanics? Or you can just shorten the number of nodes between those big boss nodes in the initial fortress. And then I'm going to keep it light on the spoilers, but the Arbiter of Divinity unlocks one of the coolest scenes in all of Path of Exile 1 and 2. I loved it. I hope they do more of these type of cinematics, and I was right about all of the edicts, by the way. I put out a lore video just before the launch of this patch, and I was bang on. But diving into that lore is for a different time. Let's move on to one of the core endgame systems, Delirium. Now, Delirium is definitely, or was definitely, the hardest content in the game for beginners, average players, and veterans alike, especially on launch. When I first encountered this, I was dying over and over and over, and I just had to let the Delirium subside, or even sometimes just let it fast forward. Now, they did reduce all damage done by Delirium monsters that were non-uniques by 50% in a recent patch, but it is still incredibly difficult, and that's good. It allows people to not only see how hard the game can get, but it allows those blasters and juicers who, frankly, that's not me, push the content they like to play to the next level. I'd reckon, I haven't been watching many videos or consuming content, but I'd reckon that Delirium juicing is the aspirational content of this league. If you juice up a map with Delirium layers, you put a whole bunch of Asmiri wisps in there, fight a powerful boss, you're going to get an absolutely insane map and really test the limits of your build. For me, I'm just doing Delirium to get those emotions so that I can instill my amulet and craft my jewels a bit. I'm not using it to push, but I'm glad that it's there for people who would like to push. I do think that instead of having Delirium be one of the closest league mechanics to the center, it should be swapped with Ritual. Seriously, why are you putting one of the hardest things in the game, something that juices up your maps with more monsters, that makes existing monsters more powerful, that turns bosses into absolute machines? Why are you putting that the closest to the center of the Atlas, the ziggurat? You need to push that out. I think that Delirium's location should be swapped with Ritual 100%. And then it's hilarious that this is paired with, I think, the most, don't get me, the most disappointing new pinnacle in all of Path of Exile 2, Tang Mazu, or the Raven Trickster. The lead up to this fight is incredible. The way that Tang Mazu interacts with you in maps now with all the new voice lines is just peak. I don't know if people notice because they might have dialogue off, but for example, when you're out of mana and Delirium is active, your character doesn't say the out of mana line. It's Tang Mazu that says, "You're out of mana." It's amazing. And when you progress through certain steps of the story, such as killing Olroth in Expedition or the big space insect, I don't remember the name of it, unfortunately, Tang Mazu has specific voice lines for that, and killing the Arbiter of Divinity, the first map that you do with Delirium after each of these peak encounters, he will have a line about, and I love that as a lore enjoyer. What I didn't love was that Tang Mazu did not seem dangerous in the boss fight. You go in there, the aesthetics are at peak, the blacks blend together so well, the music is incredible. Camille knocked it out of the park with all the new tracks in this league, by the way, banger after banger. But then you get in there and he doesn't do any damage compared to other fights that we'll talk about momentarily. I felt like Tang Mazu was a little bit of a wimp, at least for my character. I was not being hurt really, while in other boss fights like the Arbiter of Divinity or the Bodak or even Zesht, I was being chunked. So why don't we move on from Delirium to Ritual. Ritual, I love it. I absolutely love it. There are a couple changes I'd like to see, but I really enjoyed interacting with Alfei, understanding the connection of her to Solaris, Lunaris, Viridi, the new way that you use Ritual to farm unique items, very useful in solo self-found, and it all leads up to this pinnacle encounter, the Bodak. And the Bodak fight, which I will put on screen right here, spoilers, is difficult, or at least it was for me. I spent 30 minutes going at this guy, learning the fight, all the mechanics. I didn't have enough damage to completely eviscerate him, even though many people think my build should have been able to do exactly that. And he really reminded me of Count Geonor from 0.1. This was a boss that I didn't get on the first or second try. It was a boss that took probably 18 attempts to do, and every single time I'd be learning how a different mechanic functioned. He did a lot of damage, that had a lot of dot effects on the ground, but also slams. And then there's the intermission phase where you're moving with the wisps, and that was amazing. I really, really enjoyed this fight, and the sound design of it was just peak. I've only done it once so far, but it honestly ties with Geonor for my favorite boss fight in all of Path of Exile 2 at this point. And I know that they said it took them the longest ever in GGG history to design this fight. I hope they have the time to make another one of these, because I do think the Bodak is something special here. As for Ritual as a mechanic, and I guess we can touch a little bit on the Atlas trees, I love it. I love the customizability that you have with the Atlas trees and the multi-choice nodes. The juicing of the mechanics does get a bit extreme, even if you're not putting in tablets, just with the base trees themselves and maps that you put 4 to 6 mods on. I can really feel the difficulty rising, and once I make a second character and push them through, we'll have to see how that feels, because they'll be hitting a fully juiced Atlas right when they enter it, and I don't know if they'll be able to survive it. Just like I couldn't survive Zesht, I actually took like 20 minutes to down just this league, and the revamped Breach, I am a big fan of. Yes, they lifted it basically from Path of Exile 1 with the hives and the reformed breach hands. I actually thought it was really, really easy. The only thing that was threatening was a monster that has been subsequently nerfed by grinding your games because it was doing some insane chaos barrage attack. But ever since that change, I've not died a single time to breach. It seems like the density is a lot lower than in leagues past, but the big thing that I've been a fan of is the Genesis tree, the creation of jewelry and the flooding of currency from it. I haven't gotten any good belts yet, but I'm a huge fan of this sort of gambling play style. You go, you do the breach, you get the blood, you get the womb gifts, and you go to the tree. It's a wonderful cycle, and I love to see that they implemented this mechanic from Path of Exile 1, but completely revamped it specifically for Path of Exile 2, and I hope more of these reward systems continue funneling into the game. I think it really, really works, and it makes you excited every time you have enough ornate womb gifts to go and really try to get some juicy rings from the Genesis tree. The story here, as a monk, is also spectacular. I don't want to spoil it too much. I know I did in a prior video. Man, just play through this as a monk. You don't have to be an acolyte of Chayula. There's some crazy reveals here when you speak to the dreamer himself. And just the whole redesign of this story experience is 10 out of 10. Okay, but you know what is not 10 out of 10? I'm going to say it. Expedition. This was the final quest line that I went through. And while the story, 10 out of 10. I love interacting with all the NPCs and the dialogue they have. And oh my gosh, Rog and Gwennon have children. And the hopping from island to island is great. And discovering more about King Cadigan and getting the promise of another ritual expansion where maybe we go to Calgur and we fight King Cadigan is amazing. The actual mechanic sucks. And I'm going to tell you exactly why. I hate the full expedition maps. They are the worst. They are so slow, but it's not even because that you're fighting meaningful monsters. And like, let me tell you what's going on here. You go into these expedition maps and you activate these rooms of Calgur stones. And a lot of these maps are corridors, and the stones will spawn monsters on opposite ends of the corridor. And you'll need to travel 15 seconds sprinting to go and kill one monster that spawned in a different corridor to continue Runes of Aldur. I've done like 15 of these, and I've had it happen in 10 out of 15 maps, and it has completely bogged down my experience. I hope this is not intentional. I hope this isn't like intended gameplay. I hope it's fixed in the future. But that has completely ruined my expedition map experience. And alongside that, just the slow explosion of everything is just, it's so dreary. I like fast-paced, meaningful gameplay. And honestly, I don't know if you've been watching the background footage, but a lot of this with my build, with the items I had in solo self-found, I actually got some really dangerous experiences here that I quite enjoyed, especially at the max. Yes, there's a lot of crap going on the screen, but it also is challenging crap. And I've really needed to pay attention while playing. And that's probably why I don't really die when using sprint, because I am constantly paying attention and giving my sole focus to Path of Exile 2. The spider boss here, by the way, awesome design. Love the spider boss. The revamped expedition bosses, I can't really say much about them other than their atmosphere, because I killed them in like 3 or 4 seconds. Every single one except Olroth, which has that restart once you kill him one time. So hopefully they're cool. Maybe I'll get a character that's not powerful enough to absolutely cook them on my next playthrough. And then just briefly touching on Abyss, on the temple. Not a lot of changes there. Still enjoy Abyss. I love the bone crafting, and SSF especially. The bones become very meaningful. The story wasn't changed too much here. You get a little bit more lore about the liches from the Quiet One, and it was enjoyable overall. I still think they need to fix the pinnacle fight with the Vessel of Kulamak, though, because that thing is just frustrating and I think still bugged, and you can re-enter and he doesn't gain health, and it blah, 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 blah. Now, let's briefly talk about the Masters as well. Doriani, Hilda, and Jado. I think this implementation is almost amazing. The problem is, when you get to endgame, you have so many different choices, so many different things you need to do, and they're all so impactful, and that is a good thing. However, I think that you should start endgame with one ability at least from each of the masters unlocked. And I think you should unlock it in the campaign when you meet that particular master. So you unlock it in Act 3 with Doriani, maybe by doing an optional quest or something. In Interlude 3 with Hilda, and Interlude 2 with Jado. You already unlock these things so that when you enter the campaign, you already have the ability to customize your maps a little bit with the masters, instead of needing to go opposite way of the fortress for Hilda, or for Doriani or Jado, you need to go wherever the first anomaly map is. You can have that little bit of customization, a little taste of the system, instead of just not really having it at all unless you go away from the primary objectives and to the secondary objectives. I think just having one node would be impactful enough. I would love to be able to switch between them when necessary. I think this would be a great change, GGG, so that you're not locked out of this system unless you go away from the primary content. Please consider it. The masters themselves, though, and the abilities, oh, I love it. And I can't wait to see it expanded more in the future. Runes of Aldur. Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one. In the end game, they buffed the rewards drastically, and ever since then, I have seen the fruits of that buff. Tons of divine orbs, tons of the better alloys, tons of better currency, and just overall gear drops from Runes of Aldur. The wave-based style sometimes can get a little frustrating when there's one random mob that like runs away and you got to go find it and come back again. But other than that, I've really enjoyed the mechanic. It's a very simple kill monsters in a circle style mechanic for a big reward. And in the end game, it's been all right. In the campaign, though, absolutely incredible, extremely rewarding. I love its implementation as an entire quest line in the campaign all the way through endgame. I hope they do this with future leagues as well, and I hope Runes of Aldur does go core in a way. I gotta say, Runic Ward, have not used it at all. I also have not used any Kelger skill gems. Those are for future characters. We're working our way backwards right now. So the campaign too, the changes there, incredible. Another win for grinding your games. I got through the campaign so smoothly. It felt fresh. It felt new. It was very enjoyable. The Motlan Waterways is probably one of my favorite Act 3 areas. I'm not capping here. It was actually pretty great. I still think there's room for improvement, especially in Act 3. This is just my personal take. I think Act 1, Act 2, and Act 4 are good, along with the interludes, but they're going to go bye-bye in 1.0. So I hope Act 3 gets a little bit more fine-tuning, and I really hope for 1.0 they make good on their initial promise of putting a boss or a mini boss in every single area. The Motlan Waterways could use one. A couple other areas could use them as well. I think that would really flesh out the campaign the rest of the way around. And if we get more secrets and clues, that campaign is going to be pristine. And then I have played one character to level 92. It is a martial artist, and other characters level 20. Nothing right now. So what's my review on the new Ascendancy? It's absolutely cracked. And there's so many different ways to build this thing. I have swapped out of the notables on this Ascendancy 5 times so far using a crap ton of gold, and each of them is quite powerful. Right now I've landed on using the bells to their fullest degree with inscribing runes onto my body, and of course using Fists of Stone, because that is the most broken Ascendancy node in the entire game, and I've loved it. I think every single Ascendancy class should be brought up to this power level. I'm not joking at all. Bring other things down in power if you want to, even though GGG is not going to give in to the power creep nerf desires that I have asked for so long. So let's just bring up other Ascendancies to the cool factor, to the power factor of the Martial Artist and the Spirit Walker. Because wow, these things are game defining, build defining. People want to play with these classes and make builds around them, and they are not shoehorned in. This update, even though I've been sticking to my experiences, I have looked at PoE Ninja and talked to a couple of my friends. This update has introduced so much more build variety across the game with all the different tools and ascendancies and unique items that are now spattered across. It's incredible. They need to do this with other ascendancies. They need to bring them up. Even if they're played a decent amount, 3-4%, I still think they need to be adjusted to be as interesting as the Martial Artist. Another piece of feedback here, and it's one that everybody's been talking about: crashing and performance. My first week had 0 crashes and 0 performance issues, and then after a hot fix, I started freezing up pretty consistently, crashing out, and it does feel bad. I don't know what to say other than please continue working on it, GGG, which I know they're going to do. I know to all the players where they can't play because of these issues, it really, really sucks, but I know they don't want this happening. They want people playing the game. They want people to have fun. They want people buying microtransactions, and they're not doing that if they're crashing or if their performance in the game sucks. But I will put it in here. I did start experiencing them randomly after a hot fix, and now I get it multiple times per play session, essentially. Complete freeze, complete restart, a crash out. Sometimes my performance drops, especially around the Runes of Aldur mechanic. I've noticed that it constantly happens around that in particular. And every single time it happens, it does feel really bad. But I end up logging back on and playing the game because I'm addicted. And then my solo self-found experience. So this is the first league that I've stuck solely to this particular game mode. Remember, cannot trade with anyone else, cannot play with anyone else. I am just using everything that I found myself and progressing on my own through the campaign and the Atlas. As I've said in many videos, I have really enjoyed it. I know I'd probably be close to finishing out the league. I know the challenges would be done if I was in Trade League. I'm at 6 out of 8 right now. I just need that final alloy. It's not the Sovereign alloy, it's the Celestial alloy to finish that challenge, and then I need to kill the Arbiter of Divinity or clear out the Fortress to finish out that challenge, and I'm 8 out of 8. I know I'd be done if I was playing in Trade League, and I really love just progressing at my own pace. It has made the game more challenging. Bosses have gone down slower in some cases, and in others, I still feel like I'm very, very powerful. But hitting those crafts, those RNG gated things, or finding amazing items have never felt better than they do now. And I'm really going to see how it feels as I bring through a secondary character once I return from the Bahamas up to the end game and really try to push them through with all the gear and currency that I've amassed throughout 0.5 so far. This patch has caused me to stay up way too late, way too many nights, playing one more map over and over while sitting in Discord with my friends, with my family, and it has ruined my life just a little bit. I've been not sleeping nearly as much. I haven't been creating as much content as I should. I've been playing the game instead, which is one of the big critiques of the channel, that I talk more about the game than I play it. Well, that's not the case for 0.5 because I have been thoroughly immersed in the world of Path of Exile 2 with this update. You got to let me know. Are you the same? Have you been enjoying 0.5? If you have, let me know in the comments below what you've been playing, how far you are, and what you would rate this patch. Because for me, it's a 9.9 out of 10, and the only thing taking away from it are the crashes and performance issues. I think a first iteration of this version of the Atlas is great. It's great. Yes, I have not run into the progression blocking bugs and the like, so that's probably why it's 9.9 and not 9 out of 10. But this is my personal rating, and I really hope that 1.0 lives up to the hype of Return of the Ancients. Thank you so much for watching this comprehensive, 100% honest review of this patch. I will continue to play after I get back from my trip. I hope to see you in some of the lives and chat. Thanks for watching again. I'll see you in the next one. Stay sane, Exiles.